It is Monday, August 19th, 2024 at Protestia Studios, and this is your intelligence briefing coming to you from Protestia.com, where you can go to find all of your latest in Christian polemics and discernment news. Sign up for the Insurgency email blast to get those headlines and others dropped directly in your inbox 3 days a week, and support us on Patreon over at patreon.com/Protestia. Let's get into the headlines. First headline at Protestia.com. Franklin Graham bashes Evangelicals for Harris after featuring his late father, Billy Graham, in an anti-Trump ad. In late 2020, pro-life Evangelicals for Biden launched to much fanfare. These men and women champion voting for the Democrats as having the most pro-life ethic of all, certainly way more than the Republicans. Still, the group shut down 10 months later, lamenting and crying foul in a fit of disappointment and betrayal after the Biden-Harris presidency passed a raft of pro-choice legislation. Enter the newest iteration, Evangelicals for Harris, which is only slightly less absurd than Queers for Palestine and should probably be more aptly described as apostates for Harris. The group claims to represent evangelicals who are voting and advocating for the Harris-Walz presidency, running interference for them while seeking to downplay their radical agenda on issues like the economy, climate change, abortion, entrenchment and expansion, LGBTQ promotion, destroying the nuclear family, and transing the children. In a prime example of don't pee on my head and tell me it's raining, the group put a huge focus on Harris's faith, insisting she is a deeply committed Christian despite being a living, breathing emblem of Jezebelian hubris that deeply despises Jesus, Christianity, and everything it stands for. These folks, however, most who we've cataloged over the years on our site do not care, from pro-choice SBC pastor Dwight McKissick to Jamar Tisby, who championed and promoted a heretical universalist pastorix and whose organization is run by pro-choice, pro-LGBTQ racists. We are wholly unsurprised by their addition and advocacy. To that end, the group released a campaign ad featuring the late evangelist Billy Graham, insisting on the importance of going to the cross and asking for forgiveness. Here is the ad posted on Twitter a few days ago.
I'm sorry for my sin. I'm willing to change my way of life.
Have you ever asked God for forgiveness? That's a tough question. I'm not sure I have. I don't bring God into that picture. I don't.
Anyway, yeah, you can see how ridiculous that is. But Evangelicals for Harris also had Graham's granddaughter, Jerusha Duford, I don't know how it's pronounced, join one of their Zoom calls where she condemned Trump and those who propped him up as a poster boy for godly manhood and leadership. While we're assuming it's going to be godless, let's listen to what she says.
Good evening. My name is Jerusha Duford, and I'm grateful to have an opportunity to join you tonight. Thank you to everyone who joined this call to discuss a pivotal point in our country's future. You know, I was thinking this morning that if you told me 10 years ago that I would be taking an active role in politics, I'd have laughed. But then I had to stop and realize this is so much more than politics. My role began in 2016 when a man bragged about assaulting women. Various leaders of my faith then propped up this man as a poster boy for godly manhood and leadership. This broke my heart as I have watched, quite frankly, for the last 8 years, people who were curious about Jesus and his teachings
totally
done a 180 and walked in the other direction from my faith. Isaiah talks about an oak whose leaves wither and a garden going without water. These things happen slowly, over time. First, people professing the Lord made excuses for the lack of kindness, then for the name-calling. Soon it was making excuses for assault. Then it became making excuses for January 6th, and now making excuses for convicted assault and 34 felonies. The oak leaves don't wither overnight, and I'm terrified to think of how far this turning our head the other way and making excuses will take our country, but more importantly, our witness to the world. One of my grandfather's favorite verses was Micah 6:8. What an incredible reminder of what the Lord requires of us.
Okay, let's pause it right here. So she's attempting to use the memory of Billy Graham to somehow support the moral equivalency between the things that Trump has said and whatnot and the things that Harris and Walz will do. Yeah, I can't quite get there. The ad features Billy Graham likewise, the ad featuring Billy Graham likewise prompted a response from his son Franklin Graham. Let's see what Franklin Graham has to say about this. He said, the liberals are using anything and everything they can to promote candidate Harris. They even developed a policy ad trying to use my father Billy Graham's image to help promote her, or rather to try to make Donald Trump look bad. They are trying to mislead people. Maybe they don't know that my father was a firm supporter of Trump in 2016. Uh-oh. He appreciated the conservative values and policies of Trump, and if we were alive today, my father's views and opinions would not have changed. Trump isn't perfect, none of us are, but I believe he's changed over the years. The recent assassination attempt has a huge impact on him, and I thank God his life was spared. I think that remains to be seen, obviously, but certainly with Franklin Graham probably being the best witness of what his dad would have done or believed. I think that's a reasonable conclusion. It seems highly inappropriate and obviously patently ridiculous for Evangelicals for Harris to try to use Billy Graham in their cheesy advertising. Let's move on. Next headline at Protestia.com. The Chosen Season 5, fully funded by 100,000 supporters, will feature Judas's backstory and family. Yet it's yet to be reported whether Judas will be a Trump supporter or not. We would assume he will be, but we'll see. The latest season of Dallas Jenkins' hit TV show The Chosen is fully funded. Partners Come and See Foundation, a group whose mission is to ensure all 7 seasons are globally distributed, translated into 600 languages, and free for all, announced that the generosity of over 104,000 backers from 151 countries has ensured they can continue to bring the show to the masses. We have a link over at Protestia with our information and cataloging and whatnot about Dallas Jenkins and his troublesome associations in theology. You can go check that out. But safe to say we're going to be, well, I guess if you want to, you'll be seeing The Chosen for at least, looks like at least 3 more seasons. Read more at Protestia.com. Next headline, Kenneth Copeland receives $230,000 luxury car from a dying man as a seed offering, reveals dozens of luxury watches. When I first saw this picture at Protestia.com, I figured it was some sort of watch ad, and then Kenneth Copeland's head was in between the watches, and I knew better. When arch-heretic Kenneth Copeland is not giving false prophecies about COVID being destroyed, throwing someone in a wheelchair to the floor, casting away bald spots in Jesus' name, or even running his own bizarro Bible college, the world's richest prosperity preacher can be frequently found making up stuff about Jesus and justifying his personal theological idiosyncrasies in order to increase his net worth, and can be seen accepting obscenely wealthy gifts and seed offerings from dying men, according to a story at The Christian Post. And apparently this is Kenneth Copeland bragging about his watches. Here's all my cool watches. I don't know. At one point, Copeland revealed he had 36 watches, flashed one to the audience members and asked, "Do you think that one's pretty? It's a Breitling. It has diamonds around the edge. Someone gave that to me." Read more over at Protestia.com, including, actually, you know what? Yeah, you can go to Protestia.com or to our X account, or I'm going to play a little bit of it for you right here.
So I got up in the cockpit and I heard it just on the inside. You better be careful about that. Mm-hmm. Now I'm learning it's better for a seed than a sale from my spiritual father. He said, give it to him. You think that one's pretty? It's a Breitling.
How about that one?
It has diamonds around the edge.
See how cool I am?
Someone gave me that one.
Yeah. That's cool.
And finally, here just a few months ago, someone found one of those old, original AOPA edition Breitling and had it.
Okay. I think it's about enough of that. You can see more over at the Protestia Twitter account, the X account, I guess I would say. So let's move on. Next headline at Protestia.com, Planned Parenthood offering free abortions and vasectomies at the DNC. That's the Democratic National Convention. But apparently all the vasectomy slots have been filled. No, that's not a pun. Planned Parenthood, the apex predator of the baby-killing world, is offering free abortions and vasectomies at the upcoming DNC, demonstrating what a character of unrestrained evil both groups are. Planned Parenthood Great Rivers of St. Louis announced on X that they would be attending the DNC and rolling up with their mobile abortion mobile, where they'll be offering free vasectomies and medicated abortion along with free emergency contraceptives. In fact, vasectomies proved to be so popular that a follow-up post announced that all the reservation slots were filled up. I did see one person on Twitter say, if you don't like Democrat policies, leftist policies, just wait a little bit longer. Apparently, they're all going to quit procreating. We'll see. You can read more about this over at Protestia. Let's move on to the next headline. A few more to go on this intelligence briefing. Conservative Florida pastor could face the death penalty over child abuse. Former Florida pastor Jonathan L. Wing is facing at minimum a life sentence for a slew of sex crimes against minors, but could also be put to death for his crimes under a recent passed state law, according to a new report from Ministry Watch. We would not recommend Ministry Watch as a general source, of course, but they have reported on this, we have checked it out and have no reason to think otherwise. 2 months ago, law enforcement received a tip that the senior pastor at Palm View First Baptist Church in Palmetto, Florida, used cryptocurrency to buy child porn online. They executed a search warrant and seized multiple electronic devices that contained child porn, including media that showed him sexually abusing 2-year-old children. We reported on this at the time. A tragic, terrible, awful story. And yeah, without putting too fine a point on it, we would be fully supportive of the death penalty if found guilty of these kinds of crimes. You can read more about this over at protestia.com, including some of the rest of the details about this latest update. Next headline, at Protestia, Greg Locke announces new church building away from site amid ongoing litigation and 90-plus noise complaints. Tennessee pastor / apostle Greg Locke has announced he's pulling up the stakes of his church tent, relocating to a new building 15 miles away after battling for years against noise complaints and zoning infractions from his neighbors. Readers of Protestia will recognize Greg Locke as the controversial Tennessee pastor who divorced his first wife, remarried under controversial circumstances, and who is elbows deep in exorcisms and deliverance ministry after several witches supposedly harassed him at church. We have multiple links to all of that at the website at protestia.com from this article, and some of the stuff that he said and some more information if you don't know who Greg Locke is or his current move into so-called deliverance ministry. Next headline at Protestia, mega church shuts down permanently after pastor charged with 7 child sex abuse felonies. Lex City Church in Lexington, Kentucky is no more after their former executive pastor, Zachary King, admitted in July to law enforcement that he's been engaging in a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old girl over the last year and a half, prompting the beleaguered congregation to shutter their doors for good. By relationship, we mean the 47-year-old pedophile impastor groomed and sexually abused her repeatedly. According to WHAS 11 on August 15th, a Fayette County grand jury indicted him on the following charges: 1 count of first-degree rape, 1 count of first-degree sodomy, 1 count of unlawful use of electronic means to induce a minor to engage in sexual or prohibited activity, 1 count of unlawful transaction with a minor with a victim under 18, 1 count of third-degree rape, 1 count of third-degree sodomy, 1 count of first-degree sexual abuse. Shortly after the arrest, the church announced that the leadership team of the church has voted to permanently cease the ministry on account of the continued effects of the financial situation our church inherited several years ago and the impact of the ongoing investigation of a former staff member. You can read more about that over at protestia.com. We will continue to follow the story. Last headline at Protestia, woke rebrand. The Church of England is avoiding the term church for new church plants, study finds. For decades, the deplorable Anglican denomination has been drifting on issues of theology and human sexuality, suicidally adopting the worst excesses of the woke movement, the LGBTQ ideology, and hello fellow kids gimmicks in a pathetic and desperate attempt at relevancy. Over the past 30 years, their trajectory has been a sustained and shameless repudiation of the scriptures and the Lord himself, salting the earth under their feet while praying for seeds to grow. Rather than repudiate their progressive proclivities, they have leaned into them, aping the strategies of American mainline denominations, which Anglican is a mainline denomination. Over here, Episcopal is usually the biggest expression of that, who have likewise been seeing catastrophic losses that have dragged hundreds of thousands into hell. There is a case in point we have linked to here, a new independent study conducted by the Center for Church Planting Theology and Research, titled New Things, a theological investigation into the work of starting new churches across 11 dioceses in the Church of England, examining the language used by these churches to describe their new churches, and seeking to see how the descriptors have shifted over the last decade, they find that by these 11 dioceses, the use of the word church or church plant to describe their new endeavors has been removed. It looks like none of the 900 new church plants over the last decade are using the word church or church plant. Instead, they found there's been an emergence of new ecclesial language across the Church of England. They said, and you can see here in the quote, this espoused ecclesiology is affecting an operant theology within the Church of England. That is, the new language is shaping diocese mission and ministry. Each diocese uses a main descriptor for the new things. And let's look, not one diocese used the term church in their main descriptor. Instead, they're using things like new things, faith expressions, worship communities. A little ridiculous. So if you realize that, even the lost world is not into, false advertising and disingenuousness and, just not being authentically what you really are. Although I suppose if we're really looking at it carefully, they're not authentic churches. So maybe they're doing the right thing by not using that word. Thank you for tuning into this intelligence briefing for Monday, the 19th of August, 2024. Stay tuned to protestia.com for all of your latest in Christian polemics and discernment news. We'll see you next time. As always, Semper Reformanda.